If you would have asked me what my end goal was when I first started making PC building videos, I would have told you it's this build right here. Sure, it's using very high-end components with beautiful and customizable aesthetics that we can transform to be whatever we want, but that's not the reason why it's special. This PC build is for a player on the Pittsburgh Steelers, who's been my favorite NFL team for my entire life, and I built the PC with that player right here in this very spot. Today I'm gonna share with you the backstory of how all of this happened, all of the parts inside of here with explanations of why I thought it was perfect for an NFL player. We're gonna benchmark the heck out of it, and these numbers are pretty crazy. And per usual, if you wanna see exactly how the PC was built, we have a link to the condensed down live stream of just the PC building steps. But to be honest, this is the one time that I'd recommend watching the entire live stream. The Pittsburgh Steeler that this PC is for is Darnell Washington, who's been their tight end for a couple of years now. Last year when Justin Fields threw him the team's first touchdown of the season, our entire city erupted. And shortly afterwards, Darnell hit me up on Instagram asking for help with his current PC, which isn't too impressive. I already made a YouTube short about how I went to his house and there I saw the Best Buy pre-built. Darnell wants to get into live streaming his gaming. And that PC is barely letting him get by even with a PS5. I told him that after the RTX 50 series launches, I'll build him a custom PC. Not great advice. But little did I know that 2 days before the stream, he'd hit me up and ask if he could join us for Thirsty Thursday. It was our highest viewed live stream of all time, and we gave away some PC hardware, and I had Darnell sign some Steelers stuff for you guys. But what he got in return was this beautiful gaming PC, and we gotta talk about it quickly because he's ready for us to finish this up, and I'll give it to him. So for the CPU, we're clearly just gonna go with the best of the best for gaming, which is the Ryzen 7 9800X3D. I actually bought this way before the 99 or 9950X3D came out. He wouldn't need those extra cores and threads for what he's doing, and it's the same gaming performance. The 9800X3D is as good as it gets, and as long as we pair it with a good motherboard, we'll be in great shape. And speaking of which, this is the Asus TUF Gaming B850 Plus Wi-Fi. Shout out to Asus for sending this out because it's perfect for both performance and aesthetics. We'll talk about the aesthetics and getting this super dialed in specifically for Darnell in just a bit. But performance-wise, this board has everything we need, like Gen 4 and Gen 5 SSD slots, 2.5 gig Ethernet, Wi-Fi 7, and good RAM compatibility. And speaking of the RAM, Corsair hooked us up with this 64 gigabyte DDR5 Vengeance RGB kit, which is clocked at 6,000 megahertz. I specifically wanted to give him 64 gigabytes because he'll be streaming and gaming on the PC. You could get away with 32, but he'll have more flexibility and headroom with 64, and we might as well go all out for a build like this. Corsair also hooked us up with the SSD. This is the MP600 Pro XT, which is a 4TB Gen 4 model, and although this isn't Gen 5, it's still plenty fast enough. Personally, I still don't recommend you go with Gen 5 for just gaming. People like video editors can really benefit from the faster speeds, but it just doesn't provide much benefit for gamers and streamers in my opinion. This MP600 Pro XT is pretty much as good as it gets for Gen 4. I also chose to install it down here at the bottom because if he ever wants to add more storage or a Gen 5 drive, he can just do that up at the top. With this vertical GPU bracket, you'd have to fully remove that and the GPU to swap just the SSD down here, so I wanted to go through that pain now so he doesn't have to later. Well, he actually installed the SSD himself on the live stream with my guidance. He was a bit limited with what he can physically do because of his gigantic hands. He's 6'7" and like 280 pounds, so that's why I was installing the smaller cables and connectors.
A large, extra jumbo size man running down the field.
To polish off this motherboard prep, we of course have the 9800X3D cooled by an AIO. I actually had a different one that a brand sent me, but right before the stream started, I noticed that it had some broken wires on there, so I had to call in the backup. For this project, I also bought an NZXT Kraken 360 specifically just because I wanted the screen so Darnell can customize it. Instead of the stock fans, I threw on some Asia Horse Cosmic 120s, and we'll definitely be talking about these in just a bit. And don't worry, links to absolutely everything I'm talking about today are down in the description. With the motherboard finished, it's time to prep the power supply. We're definitely not using cable extensions for the RTX 50 series GPU, but we don't really need them with this Corsair RMX 1000 watt unit. Aside from being ATX 3.1 and 1000 watts, which is very much appreciated, it's also rated a perfect A+ on the new and improved PSU tier list, which of course is linked down in the description and also on zttbuildhelp.com. What I also like are these stock cables because they look pretty clean and they even have cable combs pre-installed. I did have Darnell click in the 12 volt high power connector by himself into the power supply, so we have proof that he touched it last and not me. All All jokes aside, I did go over with him my thoughts on the 12-volt high power connector, and that is why I gave him a 5080 instead of a 5090. For celebrities, athletes, or anyone like that, you almost always see them go with a 5090, and to be fair, I do think that's fine for most people.
I want to thank me.
But personally, I don't want to be held responsible if this does cause a house fire, and I feel much safer with a 5080. This is definitely on the more concerned and playing it safe mindset, but as of right now, I personally just haven't built up enough trust with a 5090 to give it to somebody else. I'll risk it for my own build for the sake of science, but not for other people, especially players on my favorite NFL football team. But yeah, while we're talking about it, this is the Asus TUF RTX 5080. Asus actually sent one of these to us when they first launched, but this is our second model that we won in a Newegg Shuffle and purchased ourselves. The Shuffle seems to be one of the only ways to realistically score one of these higher end 50 series cards right now. We've won a few of these cards throughout this ZTT office, so it's definitely possible, but you do gotta get a little lucky. And finally, the crucial component holding all of this together is the case, and just like my own build, I decided to use the Height Y70 Touch Infinite. Now no, I actually don't recommend most people spend that kind of money on a non-performance part most of the time. But when you do go all out or almost all out on everything else with the build, then this is when I think it's an acceptable choice. Even if you do, it's still crazy expensive for what you're getting. The huge screen here and vertically mounted GPU riser is very nice, but I don't think all of that is really worth $400. The case doesn't even come with any sort of RGB or PWM hub, so you're on your own for that. I also don't like that it doesn't come with fans when some cases come with all of that for a quarter of the price. So to combat that, I decided to fill it up with these Age of Horse Cosmic fans, which I've been meaning to use for a long time now. And I found out during the live stream that these are now easily my all-time favorite fans on the market because of the value that they provide. They're just like Lian Li's Uni fans with the octagon RGB design going around the fan blades and the infinity mirror design on the center and on the sides. They also connect wirelessly and just snap into each other, which is super satisfying. All of that comes in at less than $50 for a 3-pack, which is significantly cheaper than a 3-pack from Lian Li. They also have reverse bladed fans, which I used up here at the front, so we have a solid supply of fresh air intaking into the case, and they even have white models, which I'll most certainly use in a future high-end all-white build guide. With an Applic Signal RGB, or dare I say the motherboard manufacturer's RGB software, you can make these light designs however you want. And the main reason I went with this all-black components plus RGB design is so that Darnell can do whatever he wants with it. Over the years, I've seen so many celebrity style of builds where it's all super custom, hard-lined water cooling, and above and beyond. And although I do think those builds are super cool, and I can't even do some of that, I don't think that's what people actually want. Personally, if someone were to gift me a custom gaming PC that was themed around me or my business, I think that's pretty cringe. Plus, NFL players get traded all the time, so I wanted this PC to work no matter what team he's on. Obviously, this is gonna look the absolute best with the black and gold. Here's what the PC looks like rocking the Georgia Bulldogs theme, which is where Darnell went to college. But again, with these cosmic fans, Corsair RGB RAM, and the screens on the AIO and case, you can make this look however you want, and that was the goal of the project. Overall, here's what the final process is looking like, and yeah, this one obviously is pretty expensive compared to the normal builds that I typically show on the channel. In terms of going all out, other than a 5090, I think this pretty much hits the mark. And just as a reminder, if you want to see just the PC building steps with the condensed down live stream, that video is linked down in the description. But now let's see exactly how this PC can perform before we hand it off to Darnell. For a build like this, we definitely could be jumping into 4K gaming if we wanted to, but since I know Darnell is rocking 1440p monitors and it's personally what I recommend doing, we'll stick with that. For Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and 1440p with ultra settings, this PC is smoking it at 169 FPS. Marvel Rivals is at 116 FPS in 1440p ultra, and Fragpunk, which I haven't even heard of until Sam benchmarked it, is at an easy 384 FPS in 1440p with epic settings. Other than the games where we want the settings to be a little bit lower for competitive reasons, everything was tested in ultra or epic settings. And yeah, this PC has no problems chewing through any of it, and if you want to see more of this gameplay and benchmarking numbers, that dedicated video is on the ZTT Extras channel. For the RTX 5080 temperature, here you can see in Arc Survival Evolved that the GPU is pushed up to 100% and it's under 60 degrees, which is really good. We also tested just a little bit of ray tracing action in case Darnell wants to experience that, and in Black Myth Wukong, we got 62 FPS in 1440p very high settings and ray tracing set to very high. Personally, I'd rather run that at a way higher FPS without ray tracing, but he can do whatever he wants. So yeah, this was an absolutely unreal experience getting to build for a player that's on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know I seemed a little giddy and maybe even glazing on the live stream, but I'm telling you, there's only a handful of people on the entire planet that would have made me more excited to build a PC for. Ben Roethlisberger, Jerome Bettis, and Chris Boswell, to name a few. So I'm gonna go take this to his house and get it all set up for him, and hopefully he likes the build enough that he tells his Steeler friends about ZTT. And again, that full live stream of us building and hanging out for 3 hours together is up on the screen right now.